Yo, what's up, everybody? We're back. I hope you've all had a really good week. I know I have. It's been pretty busy for me, so we're gonna try to keep this a little bit shorter today, just for a time's sake. I hope you guys have gotten a chance to work through the grip lesson and then into the flam lesson, because some of those principles are going to be actually incorporated today in this lesson. So today we're talking about a very common rudiment that is used in a lot of different things, and it can be used marching percussion, it can be used on the drum set, it can actually even be used in a lot of front ensemble mallet work and stuff. It's a really fun, really simple rudiment, and there's lots of different variations of this too as well. Typically, a lot of people think of a paradiddle as just a right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, okay? There are variations of the paradiddle with variations for the sticking, okay? Today we're gonna keep this real simple, because this lesson's gonna build into some of the other paradiddle and like paradiddle and paradiddle variations that we'll get into a little bit later, okay? But there is a method to my madness on how I want to teach certain things, which actually brings me to a really good point. A very good friend of mine, Brother Bill Morehouse, actually had asked me a question on the last video in regards to certain warm-ups or certain rudiments and exercises and playing them in a specific order. Like, you know, if you do flams before, say, moving on to like rolls, or if you do like, you know, paradiddles before moving on to like other, you know, hybrid rudiments and stuff. So there is a method to my madness, okay? And these are rudiments that are numbered, and you probably should do them in a certain, you know, order. But what I like to really focus on is building the technique that's necessary for different strokes, right? I'll build on a specific stroke or a principle, and then that correlates to the next thing that we're gonna work on, okay? That we've already got that motion, you already have that committed to muscle memory, and then you build on that, okay? And then you put those two together, that brings you to something else, and you build on that. Okay, so some of the things that we're gonna talk about today, you might remember from the flam episode. So, and really what it comes down to is really kind of committing these things to muscle memory, making sure that we are really developing that quality of sound, and we're using hand-to-hand isolation in order to really develop that and bring that out, okay? So, Bill, I want to thank you, buddy. That was a really great question. It's something that I actually do get asked pretty often, and I appreciate that you take the time to, you know, watch the video and reach out to me in regards to that. He had a second question, which was about the grip, and he had noticed that when I play the drum set, frequently I'm playing, you know, match to grip, and when I'm playing rudimental stuff, I have a tendency to play mostly traditional grip. And the reason for that is, just like I said in the grip video, is that traditional grip is typically the most used grip for like marching percussion when it comes to snare drumming, okay? And when I think about rudimental drumming, that's kind of what I always snap back to, is that marching percussion and my experience and stuff playing on a marching snare line. So that's where that comes from. It's not something that I even think about consciously. It's just when I sit down to play rudiments and when I'm working on various exercises and warm-ups, I just naturally gravitate towards that. But I can play all the same stuff, you know, match grip as I do traditional grip. So it just kind of really depends on what the preference is. Neither is necessarily right or wrong, depending on what it is that you're doing. And like I said, for those of you that are just watching, that are just trying to, like, you know, really start to get into rudimental drumming and work on your technique for the first time, play whatever's comfortable to you. Like I said in the grip video, think about technique and grip as something that's fluid, okay? It's something that we're using the different tools in our bag to get the job done, right? You know, when you're working on something, you're working on a project, you know, a lot of times you have multiple tools that you're using to get that project done. Same thing with drumming, okay? We've got multiple tools at our discretion. The more tools that we have available to us, the better we can do our jobs and everything. So it's really something to kind of think about, like I mentioned before, with the fluidity of technique and of motion, okay? So today we're talking about paradiddles, okay? And like I mentioned in the flam video, you know, a lot of the names of the rudiments are what we call an onomatopoeia, right? So basically what that is, it's anytime we have something that sounds a certain way, right? So they're named because they sound a certain way. So as we talked about with flams, like phalam, 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 phalam. We talked about that. So with a paradiddle, it's the same thing, right? So we're thinking paradiddle, paradiddle. And anytime you hear that diddle, think about double, okay? Paradiddle is another way to kind of think about it, right? Because what's happening is that's playing a repetitive stroke off of the one motion. Now, when we play these slow, like we're going to start out these very, very slow because we really want to think about what our hands are doing. So when we play these slow, you're going to initiate a lot of that stroke from the wrist, okay? But as we get to playing these at faster tempos, you know, what happens is that double stroke becomes a rebound stroke like we do for a double stroke roll, okay? So that's one of the reasons why I specifically go from flams into paradiddles and not start with paradiddles, because we really want to start working on that double stroke, which will lead us into other rudiments and stuff down the road, okay? So the objective of playing a paradiddle is, like I said, it sounds exactly the way it's played. So we're playing paradiddle, 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 okay? Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, okay? Now, typically when you see these are going to be notated as either 8th or 16th notes and stuff, but anytime you see that repetitive pattern of the right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, that is a paradiddle. So even if we're playing quarter notes, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, that's still a paradiddle, right? Paradiddle, okay? And what we're looking for is making sure that the spacing of the notes is correct, and it was what we call has a good vertical alignment to what's actually playing against the beat, okay? So the way I typically would break these down, set my met. We have these really, really slow quarter notes, okay? This is actually set at 70 BPM right now, okay? So 70 beats per minute, just barely over, you know, a natural cadence and stuff for, you know, for our Arcadian rhythm. So think about that, okay? That's your quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. All right, and rep that meticulously, okay? Rep that at that tempo until you get really, really comfortable playing that sticking pattern. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, okay? Once you've gotten really comfortable playing that pattern, then you can either do two things, okay? One of the things you can do is you can either up the tempo of that and keep playing them as quarter notes, or you can devise various subdivisions and take it from quarter notes to 8th notes to 16th notes, 32nd notes, okay? So if we're playing this and we're keeping it at 70 BPM, okay? What I like to do is actually take it and then start using the subdivision method, okay? So depending on how quickly you pick up this would depend on how you would want to actually structure your practice technique, okay? But what I like to do is start it out, because what's happening with when going from quarters to 8ths to 16ths to 32nds, you're thinking consciously about the subdivisions, right? And keeping and playing them in time while playing them faster and faster and faster, but still keeping that same internal rhythm going, okay? So if we were to do it that way, it would look something like this. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. 8th notes. Sixteenths. 30 seconds. so doing it that way, you're building and building and building, okay? So one thing to think about when we're playing these is the same thing we talked about with the flams and actually isolating your hands so we know for sure what exactly each hand is doing, okay? And if you watched that video, you should remember an exercise to help with the hand-to-hand flams, which we refer to as accent taps or bucks, right? Where we're accenting and then tap, accent, tap. Okay, so that exercise actually could be used when we're looking at how to build and isolate our hands for paradiddles, okay? And a lot of times people don't really think about that. They don't think about the correlation between those two things because they're not technically related, okay? But again, when we start developing the actual basic strokes that we're using, all right, then you strip things down to what their actual basic, like rudimental, fundamental technique is, you start to discover that a lot of these things are built upon the same stroke, okay? And what we're looking at when we're building paradiddles, as well as building the paradiddle rudiment itself, we're also trying to really think about the stroke that we're learning to take us to the next level as well, okay? And so one of the exercises that you can do when you're playing these is super, super simple, okay? It starts out with that accent pattern, okay? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? So instead of playing it like we did in the flam video with 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, we're just alternating the hands on each beat, okay? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? A good control stroke followed by the tap, okay? The second measure is going to look like this. Okay, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. So put those two measures together. 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. The third measure is going to look like this. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. And then the last measure will be filling in all the partials and playing it as 16th note paradiddles. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay. So when we isolate the hands, what we see is 1 and a E, 1 and a E, 1 and a E. So when we think about that 1 and a, that's where that third measure comes in. So 1 E and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. That's where that third measure comes in. So we get that repetitive 1 and a, those low taps. Paradiddle, paradiddle, paradiddle. Okay? So that's a really, really great accent tap variant warm-up that you can use to isolate those hands, okay? So if we're putting that whole exercise together, it's gonna look something like this. That's what that entire exercise will look like if we're playing it together. Okay, so work on that, really, really think about the quality of sound and the mastering of that stroke. And the reason for that is, like I said, we're really thinking about with a diddle or a double, we're really working on that double stroke. Okay, we're dropping the stick and we're catching. It's that dribble catch that we talked about. And one of the other exercises that we'll work on for this to really develop doubles is an exercise that we call doubles and triples. It's been called, doubles. It's been called, some people call it ABC because there's various patterns and stuff that go into it. And a very common drumline warm-up and stuff. So a lot of you may have heard this already if you've seen it either in a lot or if you've been in, high school drum lines, college drum lines, even some junior high schools around the country use this. But again, it's just an exercise to develop that double stroke technique, okay? So I'll do the A pattern, which is all you would really need to really work on if you're gonna focus on this. Another exercise would be Irish Spring, which focuses a little bit more on the second partial of the double, which is really good. So these two exercises are both really good for developing that double stroke, okay? So that would be the A pattern from ABC or doubles, okay? And then the Irish Spring is more triple ties with a 12/8 feel to it. So that would look something more like this. And I'll link both of those to you as well, just so you guys can look at those and read and play along to them as well. Which actually brings me to my last thing here is I've actually gotten quite a few private messages from people in regards to what exercises I play, not just myself, but with my drumline when we're actually teaching these things. And I'm gonna actually put a link in the video description here to my Google Drive that actually has all of our warm-ups, all of our exercises. It's got some of our cadences, some of our show music. It's got snare drum, tenor, bass drum. It's got some drum set stuff in there. So if any of you are interested, by all means, take a look at that. You're welcome to, pull that up, print the sheets off and stuff, and share those with other drummers. Some of you are educators as well. If you want to share some of that stuff with your students, I've got no problem with that whatsoever. As an educator, I want to be able to, create content that will help get people to the next level. And I think we've devised a pretty good strategy to do that with our program. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. You can message me privately, directly on various social medias. All of my links are on my channel banner. You can leave a comment down below and we'll take a look at it there. So yeah, I hope this has been helpful for you. Like I said, I wanted to keep this lesson really simple, really straightforward this week, because these are going to lead us into our next lesson next week, which is going to be a little more in depth and talk about the variations on stickings of the paradiddle, as well as going into some of the other paradiddle exercises and rudiments and stuff. So be thinking about that. Really focus on your grip, okay, fluidity, quality of sound, muscle memory through hand-to-hand isolation, and your vertical alignment and spacing of the partials of the notes, all right? Always make sure we're playing to a met. Make sure we're playing to a mirror if you can, so that we can take a look at like stick heights and make sure our taps and our control strokes are being consistent. And yeah, just keep grinding, all right? Every day. Let's go better every day. My students hear me say this all the time. We want every single rep to be better than the last one, okay? So keep at it, keep learning, and we'll see you next week, all right? Thanks a lot.